welcome to another episode of Domestically Challenged. I'm your host, Katie Fitzpatrick, and today I'm going to show you how to make a berry French toast bake. The ingredients you're going to need, this is a little more of an extensive recipe, so you're going to need a lot. You're going to need 2 cups of milk. You're going to need brown sugar and regular white sugar. You're going to need berries. I have here a mix of blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries. You're going to need a type of bread. I chose to use a challah bread. You're going to need 2 packets of Neufchâtel cheese. You're going to need regular maple syrup, vanilla, cornstarch, butter, and 1 dozen eggs. Now the first thing you want to do is start to cut your bread. This is a little different than traditional French toast in that it's not sliced and you don't make it on a pan. What you're going to be doing is putting all the ingredients together into the pan to bake in the oven. So what you're going to do is take out your bread, if it's not already sliced. You're going to want to cut it into about 1-inch cubes. I like to use challah bread because of its taste. It's very light, it's flavorful. Another great thing you can do is if you have any kind of coffee bread, that would make it a little more unhealthy, but it would be very rich flavors. Or you could just use regular wheat bread. So that's up to your taste, up to what you have lying around. When you're tearing up your bread, you want to make sure that the pieces aren't too small. Traditionally, this is made overnight. So what that means is that once you put all this together, you let it sit in your fridge overnight so all the things you put in this French toast can kind of soak up into the bread. But if you make them too small, it could get kind of mushy and break apart. So you want to make sure that when you're serving this, you still have a substantial amount of bread that you'll be serving. So I'm almost done. I chose to just tear this bread up. If you're cutting up a whole loaf, it can take a while to cut individually every single piece. So this is fine to do, especially a lot of times in dorms you might not have the right knife set, things like that. So feel free to just start breaking it apart. Once your bread is broken up, you're going to get your pan ready. The first thing you want to do is grease your pan just a little bit. I chose to use a foil pan so I didn't have to wash anything later. Especially with this, once the berries cook in the oven, sometimes the berry juice gets very sticky, and if you don't wash it right away, it is a pain to have to clean all that off. And also with this pan, you just don't want your entire meal to be sticking to your pan. It's a lot easier to serve if you grease it. I'm using vegetable oil right now. If you have Pam, if you have canola oil, all of those things are fine. Even if you had Crisco or some kind of butter, that's fine too. Just make sure you get it nice and greasy. Now you're going to put all of your pieces of bread in the bottom of your pan. You want to make sure you cover the bottom evenly so that you have something to scoop up when you're serving this toast. Okay, so once those are all spread out, the next thing you're going to do is cut up your cream cheese. Now this you actually do have to use a knife with. You can't just rip this apart. You're going to open both your packets of cream cheese, and this you want to cut in also about 1-inch cubes, but this is more specific than the bread. You don't want too big of pieces because then you're just going to get big blobs of cream cheese rather than having it mixed in with everything. I chose to use the Neufchâtel cream cheese. It is about 1/3 of the fat of regular cream cheese, so it's definitely a lot healthier, especially when you're making something like a rich French toast. You know, you want to kind of cut fat where you can. When you're cutting up your cream cheese, you want to make sure that it's just right out of the fridge. If your cream cheese is around room temperature, it'll become a lot harder to work with. It won't become as hard, so and that makes it very difficult to cut up. So definitely make sure it's still cold. Don't leave it out. Don't worry about, even if it's frozen, especially if it's an overnight recipe, don't worry about defrosting it because once you put it in with everything, when it's sitting overnight, it'll defrost by itself. So we're almost done cutting this up, and then you're going to put each piece of cream cheese over the layer of bread. So everything you just cut up, kind of spread out where you're putting your cream cheese so you don't get too much in any area. Make sure it's evenly distributed. If you find any pieces that are big that you cut up, feel free to cut them to be a little smaller. But the great part about this is it will kind of melt in with the meal when it's in the oven. One other thing you can do if you have a smaller pan that's higher is you can layer bread, cream cheese if you'd like. That's fine. All right, so once you finish putting in your cream cheese, you're going to move on to the egg batter that kind of gets that French toast taste in the meal. So what you're going to need for this are your eggs, your vanilla, your sugar, and your syrup. All right, so after you put your cream cheese in your dish, you're going to start on your batter. What you're going to need for that are your dozen eggs, your syrup, your sugar, and your vanilla. I like to start with the eggs because it takes the most to beat them. And so you are going to need a dozen. I have 11 here. One of them got eaten before the show. But that's okay if you have one or two less, because there are so many eggs that it'll be okay. This is also a great practice if you want to learn how to crack your eggs, because you got 12 to go through. And just make sure when you're cracking them that you don't get any shells into the mixture, because no one wants to have any shells in their meals. When you're whisking your eggs, you want to make sure you're going quick enough that they get completely beaten together. You don't want to see any different areas of clear or of yellow. You want it one consistent liquid. This is also a great arm workout if you have a lot of eggs in here. So you want to make sure they're completely beaten. So once your eggs are beaten, you're going to add your milk. You need 2 cups. I chose to use almond milk. I actually prefer that taste in cereals and in my coffee. And it's also a lot healthier. It's only about 40 calories to a cup. So like I said before, if you're trying to, watch what kind of things you eat, this is a really great addition. So you want to make sure this also gets completely mixed together. You only need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. You can use the imitation kind or you can use the real kind, whatever you have lying around. So you pour in your teaspoon, and you want to make sure this gets mixed in completely too, because you don't want certain areas that have too much of that really strong flavor and areas that don't have enough. All right, finally, you're going to add in your sugar. The traditional recipe calls for white sugar, but I like the taste of brown sugar also, so what I'm going to do is a combination. I think brown sugar gives it a different, kind of like in oatmeal cookies, there's more of that. So it depends on what kind of flavors you like, but I think it just makes it that much more different. So I'm going to mix them a little bit, just keep the traditional and a new kind of way together. I'm using light brown sugar. If you have dark, that's fine too, whatever's around. You'll still get the same general different flavor. But you do want to make sure with the brown sugar that you pack it down as you're putting it in, because sometimes it clumps together, and when it's not packed down, you don't have as much as you think you do. So you got to make sure you put another. Okay. So you're going to put your brown sugar right into your mixture. And once again, you want to make sure you evenly stir this all together. If you have different areas that are lumps of sugar, when the meal is fully cooked, that's what you're going to find in your French toast, just those lumps of sugar. And then this is what you're going to put all over the French toast mix. All right, so you're going to pour this evenly over the entire batter. So the bread can get all those flavors soaked up, because we're not doing it overnight. You just want to kind of, mix it around and make sure that the bread is completely covered, completely moist, that the mixture is soaked through. The final step in this before you put it in the oven is to put 1 cup of berries. I chose a tri-berry mix. That's actually my favorite to kind of blend the different flavors together. So I chose blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries. Traditionally, this is just made with blueberries, so if that's all you want or if that's all you can buy, that's completely fine. But if you kind of want to spice it up a little bit, you can add any kind of berries into that mix. And so you're going to take 1 cup of berries and sprinkle it over your mix. And when these go in the oven, the flavors are going to kind of release, and it's going to be really good when it comes out. So you just kind of want to push the berries in to make sure they're kind of in with the bread and with the cream cheese, so you have enough in there. If you want to sprinkle a little bit more in there, that's fine. So it's a little more than a cup, but it's also to your liking. If you don't want too many berries in there, then stick to what you like. So this is what we have, and you're going to preheat your oven to 350 degrees, and this mix is going to go in for 25 to 30 minutes depending on your pan. So we're going to put it in for 25 and check it out and see what happens. While your bake is in the oven, you're going to be making a berry syrup to go on top of it. So what you're going to need is 1 cup of water, 1 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and 1 tablespoon of butter, and of course your remaining berries, which should be about a cup. So what you're going to want to do is put your oven on near high, because you're going to want to boil your sugar, your water, and your cornstarch. So you're going to put 1 cup of water, and you're going to want to let that get hot. Now once you put the sugar in, for 3 to 4 minutes you have to stir constantly. If you stop at any point, it will start sticking and it'll burn and you're going to have a mess. So you want to make sure you're constantly moving. So first I'm going to put in my 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And once again, I'm using brown sugar. You can use regular white sugar, but like I said, I like the taste of this, and I used it in the bake, so might as well keep it consistent throughout the meal. You're going to pour it right into your pot as it's heating up, and you're going to want to stir for about 3 to 4 minutes straight, and you cannot stop. You're going to start feeling this get a little thick because of the cornstarch. So now that you see your mix is boiling, what you're going to want to do is take it off the stove for a minute to a burner of lower heat, just so it doesn't burn. And you're still going to want to keep stirring, so you just got to be careful what you're doing here. Because if you let this sit, it will harden. So you're going to want to take your berries and put them in your mixture. And then you're going to stir it for a little bit. You can put it back on. And this burner, you turn down to low because you want it to simmer. So you're just going to keep stirring until it doesn't bubble anymore, till you feel like it's cooled down a little bit. And then you're going to let it sit for 10 minutes. Your berry syrup, you're going to want to mix the butter in and have it melt completely, because you don't want a big lump of butter in there. And this mixture is going to be poured over your French toast. Okay. So you're going to take this out. And how you can tell that it's done is that some of the egg mixture, there won't be that much left, and also it'll be a little brown on top, maybe a little bit crispy. Some of your cream cheese, you can tell that it's kind of sealed over a little bit. And pour this berry mixture over your French toast. So you can give it one last final mix, and then evenly distribute it over your French toast. And then, once you're done spreading it around, you are ready to serve. And once it's cooled, you have berry French toast bake. Thank you for joining us on Domestically Challenged today. I hope you can take this back, have it for breakfast, or if you want a breakfast for dinner, it's very filling. And we'll see you next time on Domestically Challenged.